I didn't want to talk about the Lamar. Okay, hi, welcome to this newest episode of Sports Talk Central. I'm your host, Deep Mahmood, with my normal co-host Hunter. And today this is going to be an MLB focused episode. We're going to be talking about the Juan Soto contract and how what could happen from the news from the latest news. Then we're going to be talking about the Home Run Derby as it's one of the more major events happening this week. And then we're going to be going over the mainly the top five, top 10 prospects for the MLB draft because Orioles pick one, Nationals pick five, and there's some very interesting sons of famous big leaguers that are going to be in the majors this year. So, what was your reaction when you saw the Juan Soto contract and the potential trade stuff?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's disappointing. It's sad that it's probably going to come to an end at some point. I disagree with people saying that they should trade him now. I mean, you still have 2 years left to negotiate. Sure, Scott Boras sucks, and agents like, and I know he wants to get the most for his players, but I don't feel like that kind of agent is good for the game of baseball. I've never really liked him. I think he's just a puppet to just send all of his players to free agency. I think if you were to do a study and look at all the players who have gone to free agent, who have been clients under him, I would probably say it's over 90% that have gone to free agency and have left for different teams. I think that's probably fair to say. Um, I get that, teams, I get that players should sometimes want to go there, but you've already won the World Series once in DC. I feel like you could potentially make it work again if they do show that they're committed to winning. And the new ownership's not even there yet. They're probably going to make a much different and probably better offer. I think 15 years, 440 million is pretty decent. I know the AAV is a little low, but I kind of feel like even if that's a little low, 440 million is still 440 million. That's probably the best offer I think I've seen them have for a star player. I know that's not saying much because they do a lot of deferrals, but there was no deferrals in this contract. Sure, it's 440 and it's 15 years, but that's still not far away from 500. I mean, would he have declined it if it was 15 by 500? I mean, maybe, but I still think that's compared to where they were a few months ago. I feel like that's a pretty damn good offer. And yeah, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of teams lining up to call the Nationals, but I'm really only trading him this year. If you blow me away with an offer, in my opinion, you still have time to extend him these next couple of years. You don't just trade a star player that early. The guy's not even 23 yet, basically.
Yeah, 23, 24. He's around that age.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like that. That's just stupid. It's Juan Soto. That's like, it's almost like trading. It's a dumb comparison. It's kind of a dumb comparison, but it's like in hockey or something. It's like trading like a prime 23-year-old Sidney Crosby, like when you still have 2.5 years left to negotiate his contract. That's stupid. It's a negotiation for a reason. You continue to work at it, you keep him there, and if you can't get him maybe by like a year in advance, then you can maybe dump him. But I feel like they're only going to trade him if they get an offer they can't refuse. I would want basically in my opinion, if you can,
At least
if you
two top 100. At least two. At least two.
I want 2 top 50 guys, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I want more than that. I mean, it's one freaking Soto over here. I want people that are major league ready. I want prospects that are top 50 in the country. I want the best that what you have. I'm not settling for a bunch of nobodies who may not even get to the MLB level if I'm trading Juan Soto. So, um, that's how I feel about it. I feel like, and if you also trade him now, good luck really selling tickets the rest of the season and the rest of these next couple of years. He's basically one of the only reason why fans show up at this point. Steven Strasburg's banged up again. I mean, Peter Ruiz, I think, has a bright future, and the pitcher they have is also pretty decent. But it's too early. Sure, again, teams are going to call on him, rightfully so, but I'm only doing it if you get an offer you can't refuse, and I'm still working on negotiating.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things I do want to say about the Soto contract. First one, I believe the Soto contract is backloaded, so it's sort of like he would be making 40 million in towards the later end of that contract, and I believe the reason for that is when it comes to new ownership, this is pretty much a Giancarlo Stanton situation. The Marlins gave Stanton that big, massive contract, but they did that knowing that they're going to get new ownership. So the new ownership would be stuck paying. It's like when when you're with a friend at a restaurant and then you order food and then you ditch your friend, or you ditch your friend or your friend ditches you right before dessert, and
Mhm.
then you have to pay for the bill. Like you have to pay, especially for dessert. That's basically what the Marlins did with Stanton because that contract was backloaded, and so the new ownership had to kind of pay for that, and that's why he was traded. That's why they traded him. So I believe they're basically trying to do the same thing. The learners are trying to do the same thing with Juan Soto by backloading that contract. Whoever that new owner is would be stuck paying the majority of that bill, and I think that's why. So it is a little deceptive in that way, but I think that was the reason why he turned it down because 15 years, 440 million. Yes, I know the AAV is 29, which is not good for him, but I think it's one, we don't know if there's any opt outs, and two, even though there are no deferrals, it's backloaded. So now you're talking about him making 40 million 6, 7 years down the line. But here's the thing: Juan Soto, in his eyes and Scott Boras' eyes, feels like market value for him right now it's around 40 million, and that market value for him 6, 7 years down the line is closer to 45, 47, 48, maybe even 50 million. So you would have to assume that part of the reason he declined that contract was the structure, and I think that he wanted to be making 40 million now. And if Juan Soto if he does develop as we think he would, he's going to be worth closer to 50 million, and he kind of wants that contract to kind of reflect it. Now, now when it comes to the trade, to trade for Juan Soto, you need two things: a really strong farm system, and you need payroll flexibility. And then even then, would Scott Boras really do a sign and trade with Juan Soto? What does that contract look like? Are there opt outs? So there's all these factors. Once you get through one roadblock, there's another, and then there's multiple roadblocks you got to cover here. So teams that could trade for him, I've seen. Obviously, look, you've seen teams like the Yankees, you've seen teams like the Dodgers, like every team's trying to put a trade package for him. Every team's trying to now you got people thinking maybe if they take Patrick Corbin's contract with Juan Soto, they don't have to give up. They don't have to give up a similar prospect, one less prospect because they're taking Corbin's contract type of thing. So it's a tricky situation here. You mentioned the two top 50 prospects. The problem is I could see Seattle, there's teams like Seattle that could do it, but I don't think they will because you have to pay Julio Rodriguez at some point in the future.
Yep.
Toronto probably does have the prospects to do it, but you got to pay Vlad Jr. and Bo Bichette. You got a bunch of young guys you got to pay, and they're going to be asking for similar money than Juan Soto, if not if not 100 what Juan Soto is going to be getting paid, but maybe 75% of it. Do you really want to do that? If you're and then that comes down to really some of these teams like the Diamondbacks, but would Juan Soto really be interested in playing for the Diamondbacks, like on a contract? Even though you could get a good deal from in terms of prospects, would Juan Soto sign a long-term deal with Arizona, and that's something that Arizona would consider. As mentioned, Seattle. I don't want to really mention the big teams. Marlins could be interested because they have a bunch of pitching prospects that you could send, but Nationals don't really have the positional prospects or anything like that. I know there's a lot of people in Baltimore that because the Orioles have the prospects, they have the payroll flexibility. But the thing is, you're not getting Grayson Rodriguez, you're not getting DL Hall, you're not getting Gunnar Henderson, you're not getting Jordan Westburg. Those four, in my personal opinion, are untouchable. Now, Colton Cowser, who's number 42 prospect, he's a guy you could bring up. He's a guy you could include in the trade. Whoever the Orioles get in today's draft as the number one overall pick, you could include him in a trade. Kobe Mayo, he's elicited comparisons to Chris Bryant. He's the Orioles' top 100 prospect. He could be included in the trade, but I don't know if the Orioles would do that. And even because then again, you also have the if Correa opts out, and Correa does have that connection to Baltimore. connection to the front office in Baltimore. Do the Orioles go and try to get Correa and a pitcher without giving up the prospects for Juan Soto? So this is all a long way of saying I don't think that teams are going, and obviously because you can't trade draft picks in baseball, it is going to be really challenging to find that trade partner because that whole thing of you need to have a really good farm system and you need to have payroll flexibility. It's very hard to find teams like that. So I feel like Nationals fans are going to be really disappointed ultimately by if they do trade Soto, what they will get back. But it is going to be really interesting with it because I've always thought about this when it comes to the Nationals timeline. The Nationals timeline, you're not going to like this. Nationals timeline reminds the 2022 Nationals remind me a lot of the 2017 Orioles. And here's the thing: the Orioles they had a winning stretch, but then you saw things start to teeter down, right? You saw what happened when Scherzer got traded. Trey Turner, Strasburg got hurt, and then the Orioles they couldn't reach a deal with Machado, so now do you have to trade Machado? But the problem is your farm system's terrible, and now you're starting to see those pieces from 2019 from the 2019 World Series team start to disappear. And now it's sort of like you're seeing the skeletons of the Nationals organization. With in fact, they don't really have a lot of decent prospects. Like Cade Cavalli is someone that's going to be very interesting to see because I believe he's your top guy in the system, him or Brady House. But 2018 Orioles fell apart, and then they had to do a hard rebuild. But the Nationals, they are to me what the 2017 Orioles are. So they have to. The question is, have they learned the lessons from the 2017 Orioles? Because the 2017 Orioles held on to their guys too long, and it stunted their rebuild, and they had to go through these steps to get it to where it is right now. So that's the challenging part for the Nationals. And if Rizzo's not there, if this might be a bigger look at their analytics, the bigger look at the draft process because I haven't seen. Have you seen like what are your thoughts on their recent drafts because they haven't been great?
I mean, he's never really been that good at drafting. He's really only been good at trades. The farm system is not as good just because they had to trade so many of their prospects when they were in win now mode for relief health because they couldn't really develop any good relief pitchers down in their minor leagues. So, I don't really know how much I trust him to get the team through this, to say the least. He's been good with trades, but he was just kind of mumbling over his words a couple of days ago when he was on, I think 106.7.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that
Saying that
quote.
the team is like only a few years away. I'm like, dude, I don't really. I think they kind of. I feel like they need to change up where the leadership is, but with the contract extension he just signed, I think he's going to be here for at least another year. But, when new ownership comes in, I wouldn't be surprised to see them gut a little bit of the baseball operations. So we could, I'm kind of prepared to go back to where they were in 2005 when they just absolutely stunk when they came back from Montreal. But hey, at least I got to see a World Series out of it from Soto. But, and I say this all the time for star player trades. The team that trades a star player usually never wins. You say that in NFL, NBA, hockey, especially, and baseball. It doesn't work. You can say you want the world for this player, but when push comes to shove, you're just ending up with a bunch of guys who are basically all unknowns. If it were up to me, I would probably ask a price so hard that, I wouldn't trade him unless you give me the world. And for me, that would be 2 top 50 guys in America prospect wise. I would want a really good hitter off your team, and I would probably want a lot more than that. It's Juan Soto here. I'm not just dumping him for the sake of dumping him, but I know that's not how it works, even though that's how it should.
Yeah, no, and like I mean, with the Orioles, a lot of it was the fact they went out and brought in Mike Elias, and they brought in a guy who had a clear plan and who knew what he was doing, and he knew how to run and rebuild, and he brought in the right people, and he knew he could explain why he did every step. So with Nationals rebuild, the timeline of it really would depend on the plan of the GM because if Rizzo can't explain like the drafting, and then he starts to fumble all of these situations here, the Nationals rebuild could honestly be set back by a couple years because you look at the Orioles, 28-19, they do a hard rebuild. 2022, they lost to the Rays, but they are 46-46 at the All Star break, and no one
Yeah.
expected them to be where they are. Oh, by the way, they play in the American League East, right? And so it's like they have all these top guys coming up. They're going to have all these prospects coming up next year, and their future is a lot brighter than people give them credit for. So hopefully the Nationals can, if Rizzo's not the guy, get a guy. If Rizzo's not the guy, get a guy that's like Michael Elias in the way that he can move. He has a clear plan in mind, and in the new ownership, look, you could criticize the Angelos for a lot of things, but one thing you can't really criticize John Angelos for is he basically said to Michael Elias, "Do your thing. I'm not gonna interfere. He's not gonna do what Peter Angelos did, where Peter was interfering. So it's gonna be something. It's gonna be something that you do, and it's really your personnel at that point. And at the end of the day, that personnel for me, that yeah, the personnel for me, and then we're gonna talk about do the home run derby thing, but it's all dependent on the personnel, and so we're gonna go to the next one, and that is the home run derby. So the home run derby starts on Monday. So just to clarify, it is Schwarber, it's Pujols, Juan Soto, Jose Ramirez, Corey Seager, Julio Rodriguez, Pete Alonso, and Ronald Acuna. What are your thoughts on this pool of players?
It's gonna be fun. If I had to do I guess a little funny prediction here, I would pick Schwarber to win the first one. I'll take Soto.
I think Schwarber gets the first one.
I'll take Schwarber there. I'll take Juan Soto to win that one. I'm biased, but I feel like Soto wins that one. I think you would agree.
Yeah.
I'll take Alonso to beat Acuna if you want. What do you think of that one?
Alonso's won it twice in a row, though. That's the other thing. I think Alonso wins it.
Okay. I'll let you pick the other one, Seager versus Rodriguez. Who are you thinking?
I think it is so hard to say Julio. It's hard to say Corey Seager, not to say Julio Rodriguez because he's been so good this year.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think I'll take him. Man, Schwarber. I feel like I'm gonna be biased and take Soto here. What do you think?
Because you've seen Schwarber more. So which swing? You've seen these two a little more. Like, which swing do you think is more conducive? Like, if they were to do an endurance home run derby, which guy's swing do you think has higher endurance? Because that's the tricky thing. Because I know Schwarber has 28 home runs, but if Soto has a
Soto just hit his 28th, that's tough. I mean, that's going to go either way. What do you think?
It's Dodger. Then it's also Dodger. I'm gonna say Soto. I think that I'm gonna say Juan Soto. I think that and then this one's gonna be tricky because if you do Julio Rodriguez or Pete Alonso, Alonso does have that track record of winning, but Julio Rodriguez has a really good swing and everything. And it's easy to say Pete Alonso, but the problem with saying Pete Alonso is like he's the favorite, but how many times have we seen in home run derby that the guy who's the favorite gets eliminated earlier than you thought they would? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true. Man, I might go Rodriguez there in an upset just because Alonso has won it twice in a row, but I'm not really sure what you're thinking.
I think Rodriguez. I think the guy's been a top prospect. I'm gonna go Rodriguez, and then you have some of the, and I think the final. This is a battle between two of the best young players in baseball right now, in Soto and Rodriguez.
I know who I'm taking.
Yeah. I'm gonna. Okay, so I'm gonna say Soto. I'm gonna go Rodriguez on this one.
Okay.
I'm gonna say Rodriguez. You're gonna say Soto.
You want to pick a winner? Okay, yeah, I'll take Soto. You'll take Rodriguez.
Yeah, but Well, what are your thoughts on the home run derby in general? Like,
I mean, I've always found home run derby fun to watch. I can't. I hate watching a lot of all-star games. Any sport, NFL's is awful stuff. NHL's is a little bit better. NBA, I don't really watch that much, and just you know, it's not that fun, overall. But the home run derby, you get to see, just hitters just mash the ball. It's going like these pitches are like 30 to 40 miles per hour. It's great for the fans. It's good for the game. It's fun for everyone involved, all like the kids and stuff are on the field, and you get to see some dingers just go really far up into the stands in the outfield. So I've always loved home run derby, man.
yeah, I think for me, it depends. It's definitely more fun. Like, I know, I think it was ESPN was doing, First Take was doing this debate on home run derby versus dunk contest. I think it's easy. Home run derby is more fun than the dunk contest, especially in the last few years. Um, but no, it's like definitely fun to watch because it's like that whole thing of um, it's intense. Like you're in the home run because if you see the guy hitting at a pace like 30 home runs in the 10 minutes or whatever, like 30 he hits like 20 home runs and the guy and the next guy after him in that round starts off slow. Like you're into it because now it's like, oh, now he has to pick up the pace, and if he picks up the pace, what does that mean for the next round? There's a lot of emotional investment into it, especially last year because I remember last year I was really invested in it because Trey Mancini was in it, and he almost beat Alonso on that one. He almost took down Alonso, which was great to see. But I think it really depends on it depends. It's a fun event. It depends a lot on the stadium because if it's there's something exciting about like if it's at a more hitter friendly park, let's say Camden Yards. Like now it's who can hit the warehouse, who how many balls are hit on Utah Street, how many are on a second deck, and then but if it's something at like a pitcher's ballpark where it's a lot harder to hit home runs, it could be a little boring because it's more low scoring. So there's a lot there to there's a lot that it depends on who's in it because if you have like Shohei Ohtani or Aaron Judge or Stanton, it's a lot of fun. But what happens when those guys aren't in it?
Yeah,
So there's a lot of factors that depend on the home run derby. I'm excited though. Do you like? Do you think Pujols has a chance, or do you think that?
probably not. I feel bad. I mean, you're going up against Kyle Schwarber. It would be fun. It would kind of be like honestly like an upset for the ages, to be honest. But um, I don't think he's gonna win that.
And then, what are your thoughts on like this whole legacy rule that the commissioner has, where that's the reason why Cabrera and Pujols are all stars because they don't necessarily have the numbers, but they're in their final years or close to it, so they can be put in as part. What's your thoughts on the legacy all stars idea?
I mean, it's not super terrible. I mean, it would be, I guess, an interesting wrinkle thrown at it. To be honest, I mean, I'm all for them trying new stuff. I mean, that's the game has kind of been stale at times, but no, I'm all for them trying like something new with that.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna go to the that's happening today, which is the MLB Draft. Let me just share the screen for the top prospects. So the Orioles pick number one, the Nationals pick number two. So we're going to look at the and then obviously because it is Virginia Tech, we are going to talk about some of these other guys from Virginia Tech. So the top prospects that looks like people and I kind of started this on the show. There's some famous sons here. Let's talk about the first two in this situation. Top prospect is Drew Jones. He is the son of Andrew Jones.
Yeah,
He is center fielder just like his dad. He looks just like his dad. He plays defense just like his dad. Now he does have an unorthodox swing a little bit and bats from the right side. So he's one of those guys that defensively it's going to be good right away. Offensively, it's sort of like he can clean up a few things, but he is someone really someone that could be good. But he does have a commitment to Vanderbilt, and he does have an NIL deal. So like with baseball, you got to consider like the whole signing bonus stuff and underslot versus overslot and all the other stuff, and especially with NILs, like What do you think the NILs are going to have an impact on the MLB draft in a way that, in terms of leverage for these high school guys?
I mean, some could definitely, especially if, I mean, NIL, I think is going to have an impact on anything these days, right? I mean, any sport, to be honest. And with baseball now, I feel like it's only going to, keep growing steadier. I mean, not as much as football or basketball, but I think baseball is going to eventually, try to be there um, at some point. So, I mean, I think it's definitely going to be playing a big role.
Yeah, so Drew Jones is the favorite to be number one overall. I think MLB.com, they had both the writers had Drew Jones going to Baltimore. The only reason why I don't see it is because he's going to want close to slot value, and some of these other guys are willing to take less. So next guy is Jackson Holiday. All right, let me ask you a question. The name is Jackson Holiday. Who do you think his dad is?
Not Holiday.
Yeah. So his dad, so he is the son of Matt Holliday. He won Gatorade High School Player of the Year, bat from the left side. So he basically is more of solid defender, but good hit tool. Like he's kind of more like his hit tool is more advanced than Drew Jones, but his defense at short is not as great as Drew is at center field. So he's basically it's the whole bat first versus glove first type of thing. But both these guys are very good. Committed to Oklahoma State. He's more signable. He's the guy I think that the Orioles are looking at number one overall, and I think uh, and I think that Elias likes the left-handed bat, likes to hit first tool, but if I'm a Nats fan, I don't expect these two to be available. I think that Drew Jones, if he doesn't go one, he's going two. I think Jackson Holiday, at worst, he's going to Texas at three. But these are pretty much like the top of the crop. Now Elijah Green, IMG Academy, son of not a baseball player. He is the son of Eric Green. He is a tight end. He was a tight end that played for the Steelers, and he played for the Ravens.
Oh,
So he has bloodlines, but not baseball bloodlines. But you could tell, like he is 18 years old, 6'3", 225 pounds, so big dude. But this is a guy that the Nationals could get. Like, let me put it this way: remember how the first round pick you got last year, Brady House? He's kind of
yes.
like a center fielder version of Brady House.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
basically, this is your biggest boomer bust guy. He's going to be a guy that can hit you a ton of home runs, play solid defense, but he might strike out 200 times. So like think like Joey Gallo, Chris Davis. At worst case scenario, that's what he is. So
Okay.
that might scare you off if you're a team with the whole strikeout. But is the key with him is the power worth the risk? Um, Tamar Johnson, he right now is the favorite to be number one overall, 5'10", so he's shorter. He does not have a famous father, so he's kind of your first non-famous, but probably the best hit tool out of any high school player in the past few years. And I believe someone gave the comparison of he has the plate approach of Wade Boggs and the ball to bat skills of Vladimir Guerrero Sr. That's basically a lofty comparison,
Yeah.
but that's the type of guy we're talking about. It's a guy who's limited to second base, but he will hit for a high average. He won't strike out that much, and maybe you could tap into his power. Um, but those guys can't succeed. Those guys can't succeed. Now the next guy is Brooks Lee. Now you're starting to get into some of the guys that the Nationals can target. Brooks Lee, switch hitting shortstop from Cal Poly. Dad was a college baseball coach for over 20 years. A few years ago, when Brooks was in high school, he was actually a first round talent, but everyone knew he was going to go play for his dad, so they didn't bother drafting him. But he worked his way up. He's a top five pick, top college bat. The way I look at him, he's 90% of the way there for development. Walks more than he had a walk rate of 16% and a strikeout rate of 9%. He has good hard hit rate. Nothing embarrassing defensively. The key is him. Can he lift the ball more? Because he has a good approach to the play. He has good power, but you don't want him hitting the ball on the ground so much. But what are your thoughts? Like, what are your thoughts? The Nationals go and grab a guy like Brooks Lee or Tamar Johnson, one of these guys.
I mean, they honestly need any kind of these infield prospects in their system. I mean, you wouldn't have like a prospect like this. I mean, sure, Brady House is going to be ready at some point, but outside of that, there's not much there. There's a reason why the farm system is kind of depleted at this point. But also, even if they do get one of those players, I just don't really trust the Nationals like development system to really, I don't know, I guess develop them that well. Just because Mike Rizzo has I think the wrong people in place. I feel like they would have to gut a decent amount of that out for them to like really have a prospect here, no matter who it is there that that can come in and potentially be in the major league soon.
Yeah. So, and then I'm just gonna bring up a few other, three other guys. Kevin Parada, catcher from Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has developed catchers really well in the past. Matt Wieters went there. He had a solid career. Joey Bart went there. He's with the Giants now. He's been somewhat decent. He's been connected to the Nationals a ton. Probably a good. He's a good hitter. He might be a guy who can play left field. Like think Henry Davis, who the Pirates took last year. He's a safe pick. And then the other two we're going to talk Cam Collier. He kind of went the Bryce Harper route. So as after graduating, no, after being a high school sophomore, got his GED, and then went to JUCO, Chipola Junior College. Succeeded really well there. Then went to a Cape Cod league with Wood Bats at 17 years old. Played in 9 games and struggled, but you have to keep in mind Cam Collier was 17 years old and he's going up against 23, 24-year-old kids. And yes, you expect him to struggle, but the fact that he's done all of that makes him a potentially good player. And then Gavin Cross, both of us like we both went to Virginia Tech. We both saw a ton of Gavin Cross. What are your
Gavin Cross will probably go in the first round, right, Adit?
he's a top 10 pick for sure.
Yeah.
Question is, or top 12 at least. Question is where he goes. Like, but as a Nationals, like, what which kind of goes to the point. Like, do you think that they so what would you be happy if the Nationals go with Gavin Cross given his floor, or would you rather them go with someone like Cam Collier who's more of a higher risk but a high reward type player?
It's a tough call either way. I would like Gavin Cross because the player he could turn into is I think one of the best players in the league. So I guess maybe the floor isn't as high, but I still think it's tough because the risk for the other
ceiling
players
isn't as high. The floor is higher, but the ceiling isn't as high as it would be for a Collier.
yeah, it's tough either way. I really don't think you can go wrong with either pick. It's just a matter of how do they feel about the risk, for the first one compared to Cross.
Yeah, and I think for me, look, I would love to see the Orioles take Gavin Cross. Like, go.
I know you would.
It's just, but again, they have enough college outfielders, and I understand that it would be an extreme under slot, and the savings might not be worth it. I get all that. So I think for the Orioles, I like Jackson Holiday. He bats from the left side. He's a middle infielder. He can play short. He can play second. Um, I think, especially even American League East, like if you have lefty power, like he has lefty tools, you got to think about Camden Yards, Yankee Stadium, Fenway, Tampa's Tropicana, the Blue Jay Stadium. It's
Yep.
very friendly to lefty powers, and it's very interesting that the last few years the Orioles have kind of been stocking up on switch hitters and lefty hitters. So if it's between Drew Jones or Jackson Holiday, I'm taking Jackson Holiday. I don't really like Elijah Green. I could be talked into it. If you can just curb the strikeouts, I can be talked into him. Tamar Johnson, I am a little worried though that because at second baseman has not been taken #1 overall. So there's a lack of defensive versatility, and the bat is really good. The scary thing is if he doesn't develop power, then he's just your normal everyday slap hitter, which isn't great. Brooks Lee is someone I would take over Tamar because Brooks Lee is what you hope Tamar Johnson is in 3 years. The thing with Brooks Lee is, like I said, if you can get him to lift the ball more, then he is going to be then he is someone going to be very good. So then for me, so that's where I'm going there. And then Cam Collier is a risk. Jace Jung is too much of an underslot. So I mean, I like Jackson Holiday, but you can't really go wrong with most of that top 5 or 6. And so it's just going to be really interesting to see whether Michael Elias does the portfolio approach, which is diversifying the talent pool money across all the picks they have, because they have the number 1 overall pick, the 33rd overall pick, the 42nd overall pick, and I believe they have 2 more picks within the top 80 or top 70. So I think they kind of lean under slot so they can get like a prep bat, like a Gunnar Henderson type player in the second round, and then kind of have an exciting group of talent versus like that singular talent. I know there's a lot of Orioles fans that want Drew Jones because he's a big name, but from a scout's perspective, I think a guy like Jackson Holiday is a guy that is going to be fit much better. And I just wonder because Mydell, the assistant GM of the Orioles, and Elias, the GM, were in St. Louis from 2007 to 2011. Matt Holliday was there from 2009 to 2016. I just wonder if they either knew or they either have data on Matt Holliday or they know how to get that data that they can use, and they could build that relationship with the Holiday family that they don't necessarily have with with Andrew Jones. And so it's gonna be exciting what they go. And then I just saw a news alert that the Yankees and Mets are going to try to go after Juan Soto. So that's not. I don't think the Mets.
They are not going to trade him to the Mets.
Yeah. So
I will take that to my grave.
Yeah, and I don't think the Yankees will, because I don't think the Yankees will give up their top guys, especially with Aaron Judge wanting his contract. So it's going to be interesting to see where Soto goes. And with that note, we're going to end the show on that. Next week, we're going to be talking more Ravens and Steelers, NFL news, because training camp is coming up.
Yeah, one week away, man, from training camp, basically. That is crazy to think about.
Yeah, and I think we're going to talk about some, and I'll try to get.
You didn't want to bring up the Lamar thing. That was something else.
Okay, here's the thing with Lamar slander. I don't really care about that anymore. Look, people are going to criticize Lamar because people are going to criticize Lamar because he plays different. He does things differently. I get that. Look, Bernard Pollard has a problem with the Ravens, going back to the way he was released back in 2012. It's been documented that him and John Harbaugh, him and that whole front office, they don't get along really well. He's been taking pot shots at Lamar ever since he was drafted. Let's just put it in perspective. Basically, Bernard Pollard, you should not trust as a scout. He said Lamar and Josh Allen are going to be 2 of the biggest busts in the 2018 draft. That's the guy. And then it was just really funny. Like you had like the whole thing of I'm not going to show you the video, but it was a video of it was a Hard Knocks when he was with the Chiefs, and he did something that I don't know what you call it. I'm pretty sure he thinks he thought you was twerking. I don't know what it was. But the best response in that whole thing was Lamar basically said, "If you were my son, I would have pootie tagged your ass."
I did see that. Lamar just went all in on him.
Yeah, and I will say this: I wouldn't be shocked if we go into next episode and we do hear a little bit about Lamar's contract, because Jeff Zrebiak was asked on the Lounge podcast, which is sponsored by the Ravens, do you think Lamar gets a contract done by the start of the season? and he was saying, yeah, it could change, but right now, yes, I think they do get that contract done. And apparently, ESPN, I think Diana Rossini said that she heard from a Ravens source that they were confident that they would get a contract done soon, which is good news because the language previously was, we'll get to it when we get to it. Now it's, we're confident we'll get it done soon. So that's good news on that end. But I didn't really want to get focus too much on that conversation. But the other news with the Ravens was Justin Houston signed. It's the cap hit of 3.2
Mm-hmm.
something million. So they have to restructure guys. I wonder if Lamar extension is part of that restructuring. And then they only have David Ojabo left to sign in their rookie class. Was there anything anything for the Steelers, or
I don't really think anything happened this week. Not that I
did they
really.
have did they sign all their rookies by now, or are they?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all of them are. So I think Kenny Pickett just signed recently, but yeah, there's really nothing to report there. I mean, there's probably some Deontay Johnson stuff out there, but they'll extend him when they're ready to extend him, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, well, the Heinz Field. I'll tell you that for a couple
Oh
seconds.
yeah, I forgot about
No,
the.
no one is going to call it that new stadium. It's Heinz Field. It'll always be Heinz Field. You can call it a Acrisure Stadium or whatever the heck, whatever the heck they named it. But it's if you think Yinzers in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania are going to call it by the new name, you are sadly mistaken. They will keep calling it Heinz Field forever because it's easier to pronounce, and that is how Yinzers operate. So terrible name. I don't like it. They're paying a lot of money for it, whatever, but it's Heinz Field to me.
Yeah, and then like it's like saying it's like giving it's like naming M&T Bank Stadium a name that anyone in a Baltimore accent will mispronounce. It's not a great name.
It's not possible. It's not possible.
Yeah, so we'll end the show there. So like I said, next week will mainly be NFL news. We'll recap the MLB draft. We'll talk about the MLB. I believe we'll talk about the MLB trade deadline because we might hear some rumblings there. If not, then there might be a bigger emphasis on two shows down the line for the MLB trade deadline. So we'll see you again next week in either Saturday, Sunday around this time.
Yep. We'll see you all next week. Have a good one, everyone.